Welcome back to Tipping Point. I'm your host, Kara McKinney. President Trump successfully negotiates a delay in his sentencing. The date was initially scheduled for the 11th of this month, right before the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where he will formally be made the party's official nominee. Soros-backed prosecutor Alvin Bragg says he will not oppose the motion to push back that date by at least 2 weeks. But the Democrat donor judge has since responded to say that he will delay the sentencing by more than 2 weeks, pushing back the timeline to at least mid-September. Part of the calculus behind Trump's legal team asking for a delay is that they are also filing a motion to dismiss the New York hush money conviction altogether, based off the Supreme Court's ruling on presidential immunity. Trump's legal team had previously cited presidential immunity in that case, but it was dismissed by the lower courts. However, they hope to renew that line of argument with the heft of the nation's highest court behind them. Trump's lawyers argue that the jury was tainted and therefore the case was invalidated by them being given access to official White House documents and records that they believe were covered by presidential immunity. The judge says he will rule on the immunity question on September 6th. Joining us now to discuss all this and more is Bobby Eberle, a Republican strategist and host of the 13-Minute News Hour. Bobby, thanks for being here tonight.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Great. So do you think the delayed sentencing is good news for President Trump?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, I'm going to speak selfishly for a little bit because I'm going to be a national delegate to the convention. And the last thing we wanted was, an empty room, and the presence of President Trump becoming the nominee is just going to be electric. And so the fact that they've pushed it down there definitely lets the convention, the Republican National Convention, be what it should be. I mean, he's going to be announcing the VP soon, and it all culminates in these conventions. So the fact that he's going to be there, we know that for a fact, is a really good thing. And also it causes all of these cases to be reevaluated. The Supreme Court didn't say what an official duty is and what non-official, but it sure did say without a doubt that official duties are covered. The president is absolutely immune. So now these lower courts got to figure out if they even have cases, and some of them are looking pretty bad. So the fact that they push this off gives Trump more time to actually get out there and campaign, be at the convention, and do what he does best.
Oh, definitely. And, obviously, one of the main points in this lawfare is to keep President Trump distracted, to drain his resources, and to keep him away from the campaign trail. Thankfully, that hasn't happened because he's not Biden. He has the stamina, right? We see him flying from state to state, going, back when the hush money trial was ongoing. He was in New York, and then he was campaigning in New York. Then when he was able to have a free off day on the weekend, he would be in Wisconsin, or he'd be in Michigan. He'd be somewhere, right? So that hasn't necessarily worked, but there was a fear, like you're saying, that when the sentencing hearing happens, that they could put him behind bars. And I have a hard time wrapping my mind around that, but maybe I shouldn't. There's nothing too low for the left these days. I know Alvin Bragg, he put in his sentencing recommendations yesterday on Monday. So, when we see that sentencing, when it comes around in September, assuming the case isn't overturned by then, do you think that they are actually really going to try and put President Trump behind bars before November?
Well, I think what we're seeing now, and we saw this from the debate, and what's all kind of coming up to the surface now, is a party in meltdown and desperation. So it's, I was talking to friends of mine. It's funny you asked that, because leading up to this, what would have been July 11th sentencing, I thought, there's just no way it's going to work out that he's going to be in jail. But come September, come later, if the Democrats haven't figured out, what they're doing with Joe Biden, they fear that they will lose. And so you just leave it to the left. I think they'll do anything they can to strip President Trump of his ability to campaign, genuinely interfering with an election. And if that means throwing him in jail, I think they're going to do it. It's just so funny. Before I was watching the press briefing, I was hearing comments of callers, and one Democrat called in, and he's just saying with these Supreme Court rulings that he's so afraid that, this is going to destroy democracy. And the host said, "What should you do about it?" And he said, "Keep Trump off the ballot. Kick him off the ballot." So their version of protecting democracy is actually to kick someone off the ballot and not have us have that choice, that constitutional right to vote. but it shows the desperation in the Democrats, and I think it's going to get worse.
It does. I mean, that's the thing now is democracy as defined by the left is just whatever we like. Fascism as defined by the left is whatever they don't like. And that's just sadly the way it is. I mean, it's crazy. Like you said, they're still talking about trying to kick Trump off the ballot, or at least some Democrat sycophants are saying that. When it was so interesting, it was actually liberal justices siding with their conservative justices on the nation's, highest court, the Supreme Court, that ruled to say Colorado couldn't just kick President Trump off the ballot like that. So I don't know, maybe they need to start doing pressure campaigns on the liberal justices of the Supreme Court in the same way they have, been doing that to the conservative justices. Obviously, all of that's highly illegal, but that's the left these days. And kind of what you were saying a bit earlier with the left, it's almost like they're a cornered animal, a wounded cornered animal. There's really nothing more dangerous than that, right? They're going to lash out in every which way to try and protect what they see as being theirs, their ill-gotten gains. But I do want to ask you as well, because there's some other news coming out of New York, I believe. I have here former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani. This is the headline from the Post-Millennial: disbarred by the Supreme Court of New York, their appellate division. And of course, it all goes back to him talking about the 2020 election and how that was, quite rigged, I think, for anyone who had eyes to see, and we all lived through it and we saw it all happen in real time. But how crazy is this that you are a lawyer, you give advice to your client, legal advice, and next thing you know, you can have this court come in and say, we don't like your legal advice. You're not allowed to give legal advice to your client. We're going to say your legal advice is dangerous. It's almost it's like an insurrection, and we're going to yank your law license for it or disbar you. I mean, how crazy is that?
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It's like you have to follow the left's narrative, and they've infiltrated so many aspects of society, whether it's entertainment or media, government, education. And so if you don't echo their sentiments, if you don't advocate for their causes, they're going to silence your speech. They are going to make it impossible for you to get the word out. I mean, Steve Bannon is in jail right now. We've got other people being followed. We've got raids on innocent Americans. You see it over and over again, this intimidation by the deep state to keep people from speaking out. And again, we see news reports coming out right now from Georgia and other states where ballots were counted or miscounted or disappeared or disk images are suddenly vanished. But you speak out, you try and contest that, and the left is coming down with full force. We need to stand behind these folks, and we need to speak out and make sure that, hey, the populace, this silent majority is silent no more. And we're going to fight back.
We are, and it's scary because we talk about lawfare and we think of it more in that head-on direct way of them trying to throw President Trump, their greatest political threat, behind bars on just made-up false charges, as if we're living in some third world nation. But it gets even more insidious than that. The lawfare also extends down to just regular Trump supporters, as we've seen, pro-lifers, J6 defendants, them all getting locked up. But then also here, like Giuliani or Jeff Clark and so many others, where their law licenses are being looked at. And again, it's because they were giving legal advice to their client, which last I checked, that's one of the most protected, relationships one can have between their lawyer and a client. And yet that is what lawfare now is going after. And I think part of it is just to chill any, smart lawyer out there from working with President Trump. Anyone who says, hey, this is a huge, grave injustice, maybe I should join his team and, make sure this doesn't continue. It's like the lawfare is trying to say no one can protect President Trump, because if you try to, no matter how legally you do so, we will come after you as well. So do you think that is just another layer to the lawfare we're seeing?
Exactly. And you can use it in different areas, different examples too, just like, conservative shows, how there's pressure on advertisers to not advertise on those shows. You can't be affiliated with that. This is the lawfare version of the exact same thing. You can represent whoever you want, except for conservatives. You can't speak out on these issues. You can't give, and you summed it up so great, legal advice if it's the wrong person. And it's terrifying, because not everybody can, cover these legal bills or have the time to do these challenges or face these fear and this intimidation. People don't want that. That's just natural. And so the left plays off that to silence the opposition so that the only voices being heard are this Marxist leftist agenda.
No, you're exactly right. And that's also why the left hates, the American dream so much, Ryan. That's why they're trying to impoverish all of us. Because, look, anyone else right now who wasn't President Trump would be destroyed by these legal bills. But, President Trump being able to have his own wealth, meaning he can't be bought or sold by the donor class, the interest class, and the rest. But it also means that he puts up a bigger and better fight against the lawfare than any of us would be able to put up. And so that's why the left is trying to impoverish all of us, right? Is to make sure there's not another Trump in the future. But, Bobby, we are out of time. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Kara. Appreciate it.
All right, friends, thanks again for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And before you go, please hit that subscribe button above. Once you do, tell your friends, share it, spread the word about the 13-minute news hour so we can keep growing. And for more great content, check out these videos right here, and I'll see you next time.